talk about how we put in numeric information. What we're going to do is just create some numbers here, sales for January, February, March, April, May, June. As you type a number, notice how it appears in the cell. I'm going to put in the number 120. It appears as if it's on the left-hand side of the cell. As soon as I hit down, left, right, or up arrows, or enter, I'm going to hit right arrow in this case. The information ends up in the cell on the right-hand side. Numeric information is automatically right aligned. Shouldn't be surprising. Didn't we learn that back in the second grade? Whenever you put in numbers, if you're going to add them or subtract them, you line them up along the right-hand side. We're now going to put in some other information. As we put in information in these other cells here, as we type in data, we're just going to type the information and hit the right arrow. Remember, our default is that if we type something and hit enter, the active cell moves downward. So I'm going to put in the following numbers, 160, and then right arrow. March will be 210, right arrow. April, 250, right arrow. May, 320, right arrow. And June, 400. At this point, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference which key I hit. However, another way to complete entry is, and you would have to reach for the mouse, if I have finished typing this entry, 400, if the next cell that I want to put data in is B3, I could, with the mouse, simply click in cell B3, and I'm ready to put in information there. We are going to enter expense numbers in the same way. The number 100, we'll go here, we'll hit the right arrow. February expenses will be 130, right arrow. March expenses, 175, right arrow. April expenses, 215, right arrow. May expenses, 260, and June expenses, 325. I'll just hit enter here. Notice, by the way, at any time when you put information into a cell, as you type it, maybe this entry was incorrect and I'll retype it. Suppose I want this to be 335. As you type an entry, you'll notice in the formula bar above this on the left-hand side, as you point in the formula bar, you will see a red X, and it does mean cancel. If you were to click on this, it would be the equivalent of hitting the escape key as if to say, I really don't want to change this at all. If you click on the green check, it's the same as hitting the enter key. Now, I certainly don't want to do that right now because I would be saying that the number 3 is what I want to do. Now, many times, if you're typing, you don't use these at all because it means reaching for the mouse. But they are there, and when we talk about editing a little bit later, you'll see that these do have a role to play. But just be aware that you don't see these until you begin editing a cell or creating an entry in a cell. So we want this to be 335, and as soon as I hit enter, the red X and the green check will disappear. Occasionally, a little problem occurs. I want to alert you to it. It's not well documented, but it happens often. If you start to make an entry in a cell, and sometimes you do this by accident, you rub the keyboard perhaps. If, for example, if the active cell is right here at G4 and I happen to hit the space bar by mistake, notice that I have activated the formula bar, and maybe I didn't see that or know that. And at this point, perhaps I wanted to use a command. If you click on a command, you'll notice that many of them are not choosable. And sometimes you're scratching your head a little bit. And this becomes particularly a problem if the active cell where you made this little mistake is underneath the menus. I'm going to hit escape here, and escape again, and escape again. Suppose, for example, I were at this cell and hit the space bar by mistake, and I go to use a command like insert or view. I'm wondering, why are those things not choosable? And what's happening at the same time that I don't know what's going on, the formula bar is being hidden. So just be alert to the fact if commands appear to be unchoosable, let's say that there are many, many of them, click back in your worksheet, and very often, in this case, I actually killed the entry, but at certain points you'll see that you've activated the entry. Once again, click on a cell, start an entry either by mistake or on purpose. You go to Commands, can't choose them, this is the problem. Just hit escape. Up to this point, all we've really done with our worksheet is data entry. We haven't really called upon Excel to do some of the calculation and formula work that it's best at. That's what we're going to turn to next. In cell B4, we would like to tell Excel how to calculate profits. Excel won't do this for us magically. We do have to enter what's called a formula. We want to tell Excel, in effect, let's subtract 100 from 120 to come up with the value 20. The way we enter a formula is similar to writing a formula in mathematics or algebra, with one major exception. If we were writing a formula in algebra, we would have information to the left of the equal sign and to the right of the equal sign. In Excel, what's to the left of the equal sign is implied. We are at cell B4 right now. That's the active cell. And rather than saying B4 equals something, we don't type B4, it's implied. All formulas begin with the equal sign. And what we'd like to say here is 120 minus 100, but we don't do that explicitly. The idea is as follows. The sales figure is 120. Expenses are 100. It's possible those numbers may need to get corrected. They may need to change. Maybe these are thousands of dollars and we really want to type in 120000 later. What we really want to do here is to subtract the information in these two cells regardless of their content. And we do this by typing in addresses or pointing to them. What we're about to say, and we'll show you different ways to do it, is whatever's in B2 minus whatever is in B3. So a simple way to do this is simply type B2 minus B3. Upper and lower case is not critical here. And if we were to hit enter, which we will do, we have the answer. And notice, the answer is what we'd like to see in the cell, but we are reminded, if we look up here in the formula bar, that the actual formula that we typed is present there, equal B2 minus B3. And remember, we don't say B4 equals B2 minus B3. That's implied because that's the active cell. So the manner in which we did that is perhaps the standard way. What I'm going to do is delete this and show you another way to enter a formula. And it isn't necessarily better, but it may be your preference. Some people don't instantly and immediately see this cell as B2. They have to be reminded that it's in column B, it's in row 2. If you were to type the equal sign to begin the formula and didn't want to type the address, you could click on cell B2 with the mouse. So in your mind, perhaps you're saying equal January sales, which is right here. So with the mouse, click. And now minus on the keyboard, minus what? January expenses, that's right here, click. What have you done? You have effectively typed in the entry, you can see it on the screen there, equals B2 minus B3. Hit enter. Same effect as before. The advantage of this is you did not type an address. The disadvantage is that you're using two hands, one for the keyboard, one for the mouse. So it's your choice as to how you want to do this. Now, if we move to cell C4, we would type a similar formula, which would say something like, which would say exactly, equals C2 minus C3. We would move over here and type equal D2 minus D3, and so on in other cells. Fortunately, we don't need to do this, and imagine the tedium if we had to do this for 12 months. Or what if this particular worksheet covered a 4-year period? We don't want to do this 47 more times. In Excel, if you have a formula and you wish to repeat it in cells to the right or cells below, in the same relative way, you can point to the lower right-hand corner of the cell on that little box. Remember, it's called the fill handle. And if you click and drag with the fill handle rightward, remember we had done this earlier with the months, if we use the drag of fill handle in this case, off into column G and let go, we will have copied our original formula in the same way. Not exactly. This formula, notice, is equal B2 minus B3. This formula is equal C2 minus C3. When you drag a cell from the lower right-hand corner, a cell that has a formula in it, you effectively repeat the formula in a relative way. And that's what you would want it to do here. In every single case in these 6 cells, Excel has written a formula that subtracts the 2 cells above it in the same way that it was done in column B. And of course, you'd check out the answers if you were skeptical. And it does work. That's a common way to copy formulas in Excel. At this stage, our workbook is much more useful than it had been.